Live. And here we are. Hello, everybody. My name is Melanie Brulée. Salut tout le monde. Je m'appelle Melanie. I'm the executive director at the Ottawa Music Industry Coalition, and super happy to be here with everybody today for this really special first of three-part series workshop event in collaboration with Folk Music Ontario, with a big thanks to Ontario Creates and the City of Ottawa for making this project possible. If you are not aware of OMIC, or this is the first event that you've joined us on, well, welcome. We are a bilingual, nonprofit member-based organization. You can kind of view us as the Ottawa Music Office at an arm's length. And so we're largely funded by the City of Ottawa. And we also get other funding from private and other public sponsors to be able to run projects. And so we empower, we educate, and we entertain, and we do that through advocacy. We are in regular talks with the City of Ottawa to make sure that we are implementing Music City strategies to make Ottawa a great place to interact with music. We also do professional development. We do a lot of these panels in partnership with Edwards Creative Law. We do the Independent Music Business Series, and those are pretty well all online. You'll also see us at a bunch of different conferences coming up as we have partnerships with conferences, and so you'll see us live and in the flesh for some of those. And then we also do programming. And so we just finished up a monster concert series this summer where we had 36 shows, almost 80 artists. I think we paid 176 individual people in the creative world just to put on this summer series. And so that was called City Sounds. Huge thanks to the City of Ottawa for that. We were able to have music all over the city. And so we are always doing fun partnerships with folks and being able to showcase local Ottawa music. And so we are super proud to be here today to feature actually, or in collaboration, I guess, in conversation with one of Ottawa's finest musicians, my very good friend, Amanda Rheaume, who you may know as a touring artist, who you may know from Ishkade Records, who you may know from the International Indigenous Music Summit and the Indigenous Music Office. I would love for you to just tell us a little bit more about yourself. Amanda, take it away. Welcome.
Oh, big Mel. Hi, everybody. This is awesome. I'm on unceded Algonquin and Anishinaabe territory right now. So that's a real fun thing to be doing this chat and actually be at home. So yeah, I was born and raised here. I grew up in Barrhaven, for anyone that knows Ottawa. And now I live in Wellington West, and I've lived here like my whole life. I did move to Toronto for almost just under 4 years and love that also, but always knew I'd be back here. I think this is a great place to live. And I have like a deep excitement about growing the music industry here and the culture of music and just like community, music community as well. So I'm an artist. I've been making records since, well, EPs and records since like 2003 and all sorts of studios around town. And if you've been in a bar in the city, I've probably played it in the corner one night or another. And I write and sing and play and record, I'm going to say Americana music. It's not quite country and it's not quite exactly folk music, I'd say. It's a bit of both. And I've self-managed my career for the most part for the whole time. And recently with Shoshana Kish started a record label called Ishkade Records and do a bunch of other things like Mel mentioned. And I just feel really excited to be here and help however I can talk about Folk Music Ontario conference and, you know, just offer any kind of like anecdotes and experiences that I've had going to not just this conference, but lots of conferences all over the place.
Yeah.
And yeah, here
We've
I,
run into each other at many a conference.
yeah.
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 So just a little background on like our connection, I guess, with Folk Music Ontario, and big thanks to Rosalind for being here with us and for running, I guess, the first conference in person in a while for a lot of us. So that's super exciting. I've been going to Folk Music Ontario since it was called the Ontario Council of Folk Festivals,
See
OCFF. Yeah, it's like having the original post, or the code on your phone where you're like, I'm an original 613, or I'm an original 416. I'm an OCFF kid.
for sure.
Um, but the first time I went to this conference, it blew my mind. I had never been in a space with that many artists and creators and so many opportunities for connection and professional development all in one place. And I just felt like it lit me up. And ever since, I've been going pretty much every year. I've made so many great connections. Part of what I love about the folk community is that it really is a community, and you can really dig in, and you can really make some great connections and friendships that are not just going to help your career, but they absolutely are going to help your career in the long run. And a few interesting things about FMO is like going to the I remember the first time going to the first timers orientation, and like just feeling like everybody knew each other there except for me. And by the end of that weekend, I was also hugging everyone on the way out. And so I thought, like, if we're going to FMO this year and we haven't conferenced in a while, we haven't been connected. There's a lot of people who have been creating music for the first time, that are bringing it out to people. And so, how can we like connect before the conference in a way that brings us together? And we also can kind of network and see other people's names in their Zoom boxes. And over three workshops, we can connect with each other so that if anybody is going to the conference for the first time, you know that, oh, Mike is there. You know that you've met Amanda. You have talking points. You've seen other people in their Zoom squares. And so it's like a preemptive way of gathering and networking before the conference. So yeah, we're really happy you're here. Amanda and I have been to, South by Southwest and Americana Fest and Folk Alliance, and there's so many, North by Northeast and CMW. There's so many conferences. So we kind of had a brief chat about all of the things that you would possibly need. And we're going to open that up for questions and comments at the end, because we're just two people getting through life here. So on sometimes low bandwidth. So there
Yeah.
might be some things that we forgot. So let us know in the comments. Um, so yeah, so maybe I'll hand it over to you, Amanda, and we can start maybe talking about the overarching theme of this, and really why we go to conferences, and that's like to make connections, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, miigwech. I totally echo everything you just said about I remember going to my first FMO and just being like, that first day, like, I feels like a fish out of water. Who is everyone? And that is totally normal. And you can bet that so many other people feel that way. And I think people feel that way even now because of the pandemic. They're sort of like, oh, how do I do this? So I don't think anyone's going to be alone in that. And let alone like conferencing, just like re-entering into like busy world with lots of humans and all the, I'm going to say, like unresolved things that the pandemic has caused, with social interaction. So feel that as well. When we were talking, Mal and I, the one thing that I remember going into my first conference and just being like, okay, I got to prove myself and meet everyone and hand out all my cards and be so like professional and make an impression and all that stuff. And while that's all true, like one of the things we talked about was that bottom line, like anyone that's going to this conference is a human being, and like it really is about building authentic relationships. Um, and for me, like I didn't really think about that until much after. I wanted to just like sell myself and get all the gigs and like, all that stuff. But what I've come to realize over many years of like over identifying and like overdoing it, is just like striking up conversations and just talking to people about regular things, or just about what's happening in that moment, instead of looking at it as so transactional, has really helped me, make actual real friends who just happen to do things in the music business. Because I think, we know what it feels like when you can tell someone's like trying to get something from you, or they're not
Hmm.
really interested in talking to you as a person. And that was one thing that came up when we were talking about conferences at the beginning of when you and I hopped on the call the other day.
Yeah.
Just to
What
frame the whole thing from that perspective.
One of the icebreakers I've seen people use, and these are all tips and tricks that I've stolen from other people, so let's be honest. um, but one of the things I love is when you are talking to someone, let's say you're talking to an artistic director at a festival that you want to get booked at. I try to not talk about myself at all. And I start with, hey, who have you seen this weekend that you really loved? And
Mhm.
like, let's see who they are and who they like and what they connect with musically. And does that connect with what I do or who I am or what I like too? And so you can really get to know somebody just by saying like, who have you seen that I should see this weekend? Like, who was your new discovery that you love? And I find that's a really great way to put a conversation out about something that is not you.
Mm.
um yeah.
Yeah, I think too, like in the spirit of being the most vulnerable, like I've often felt like, "Ooh, maybe I'm not good enough to be here." Like everyone is so good. Everyone is so, so good. And I think that it's important to say out loud that like every artist that's going there matters, and like the music that everyone's making matters. And like it can be a little bit like sometimes it can feel kind of defeating. And I know we have like a checklist of practical things to go through, but it's also just the reminder that like
Yeah.
the music you're making and whatever each person here is doing in their career in the music business, if it's not music, you're doing something else, like the contributions matter. And like coming into it knowing that, I think is really important, because I felt really defeated, honestly, at certain times, different times in my past, and still, uh, where it's just
Hmm.
like, okay, I could use that reminder sometimes, and I just want to say that out loud to everybody here. That
Yeah,
like
I love that. There's space for you. If you are there, you're supposed to be there. Wherever you are is exactly where you're supposed to be.
Mhm,
So keeping that in mind and like try as much as possible. Don't compare
mhm,
yourself to other people. You have your own path and you have your own goals. And some of your goals have to do with your career, and some of your goals have to do with just you being a human being. So stay in your lane, but shine in your own way. Everybody's
mm,
important.
yeah. So those 2 things I think are key, like
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. So let's get into some tools, tricks, tips, stuff. We've got a checklist, and Kareem, maybe you can post the link for this in the chat so everybody can see it and kind of follow along.
Yeah, sure.
Um, and thanks. Kareem is our senior program coordinator at Ottawa Music Industry Coalition. We thank him. If anybody is like, hey, you guys said you're bilingual and you're not saying any of this in French, I am happy to have a conversation with you afterwards and fill you in. I'm happy to translate this entire thing for you as well. But for the moment, we're going to do this one in English. But if that's a problem for you or you need some accessibility in any other way, we are totally open to hearing all of that stuff. So now everybody's got that document in the chat. Let's get into physical stuff.
I love it.
Let's start with a one sheet.
Yeah,
Um,
I love one sheets. I love one sheets. I love them when they're printed, but I love them even more when they're on the internet. I think they should live in both places. I think I've also like spent so much money on like cardstock and all that stuff, and I think it's important to like for it to look really good, but like reasonably, don't, people are getting so many things, and like, yeah, you don't have to get the best thing, and maybe don't write it on a napkin, that somewhere in the middle. But do you want me to talk a little bit about like the content, hey, on a one sheet?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. I think having a really great promo photo so that people remember what you look like. Um, Having your name, having a short bio, maybe like 2, 3 paragraphs, but like just kind of elevator pitch stuff. People's attention spans, as we know, are like really limited. So the kind of in a way, like the least amount that you can include where, it's the meat, the like the really important stuff. I love seeing a press quote if you have one. If someone has said something great, even if it's like an email in an email, or like is in a publication or some kind, like online or whatever. If you have something like that, I always like seeing something like that. And I used to organize it in terms of just, I would call it highlights, career highlights, and I put like 3 or 5, just whatever has been awesome that's been going on for you in the past, or currently, or coming up. What else? Your contact information.
Contact info, yeah, super important on there too. And like, it doesn't need to be fancy, this one sheet, as long as you have like a good quality photo that's high res. Make sure that nothing's pixelated. These are really basic things, but sometimes you don't realize until you print them for the first time and you're like, oh yeah, this doesn't look that great. So be as concise as possible. And if you're putting out a new record, like the date of your record, the name of your record. There are tons there's lots of inspiration online, obviously. And we could even, I've done some one sheets for Amanda, so we could even post some in the FMO, omike.com/FMO.
Yeah.
Along with that physical stuff like business cards or contact cards, um, you know, how do you go about that, Amanda?
Great question. I did just get business cards printed. People still pass out. They do. Like I have seen more people doing the phone bump thing. I don't know has anyone heard about that app where it's like you just you put your phones near each other and then you have each other's contact information. I don't think everyone's doing that yet. So I think having like a small run of business cards that feels like responsible for you in terms of environmentally. I was just at Americana in Nashville, and I definitely passed out business cards and people gave me business cards. Sometimes what I'll do is, if it feels appropriate, I'll like actually take a photo of the person with their card. People have asked me to do it. It might not always be the right thing for everybody, but if it's like good vibes, I think it's nice, because I don't know about anyone here, but sometimes I've gotten home, I've had all these cards, and I'm like, oh no, who is this?
Mm-hmm.
And just another caveat to the business card thing. Sometimes I'll even take a photo of the business card right after I get it, because I lose so many things at conferences. I think I'm going to do a really good job, and then I never, ever actually do. So I'll take a photo. And another thing I'll do is have a notes thing, like just for that conference, and make a note. Like if it was like, Rosalind from FMO that I just met, I would say, Rosalind FMO, and then like whatever tidbit I needed to remember, like email for application for blah, 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 or like just something to jog my memory, because it's like, there's just so many people that you talk to. And sometimes it's hard to remember what is happening once you get home. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. So speaking of being like environmentally friendly, FMO is going paper free this year. So they have an environmental advisory committee, which is great. And so they're going entirely paperless. So go FMO. This is awesome. If you've been to any conference, FMO or FAI, you know how bonkers it gets with the amount of paper that's wasted in the hallways. It's sadness every morning. People are there cleaning it up, and honestly, it's like writing. It's like looking at a tree murder scene. It's really terrible. Yeah, it's sadness for me. So in lieu of that, you won't have posters. You won't be able to put your posters up physically anywhere, but there are digital screens that will
Mhm.
be scattered around. And so they're rotating. So your poster will be rotating with others. This is a paid thing, and the ad deadline is October 3rd. You can contact office at folkmusicontario.ca for the info on that. And feel free to jump in anytime, Rosalind, if you need to.
Yeah, I was going to hop in and just explain a little bit about for any first timers to the conference, like the difference between why, or for past attendees too, any like the difference of why posers aren't as relevant to this year, because we're not doing the private showcase model that we would normally do. When we would do the hotel room private showcases, there would be upward, between 30 to 50 showcases happening at once, between, 9 p.m. to 3 a.m. So that's like a lot of stuff and that's a lot of competition. And people would put up posters to be like, come to mine, come to mine, come to mine, come to mine. Uh, this year we have a way different program for the showcases. So if you have a daytime spotlight, um, daytime spotlight showcase, you're the only showcase going on during that time. The evening spotlights, there's the maximum will be three things happening at once, and they're all uh, offset from each other. And same thing with the official showcases; they're all offset from each other, and there's only three at once. Oh, sorry, there's only two happening at the same time with the official showcases. So there's everybody's going to be funneled towards those showcase rooms. It's going to be hard to miss anybody's showcase in that sense. And we're going to have big poster boards that are advertising all of the showcases. So that's going to be up on those screens. That's going to be front and center of the website, which is going to be kind of our de facto app. And we're going to have big poster board, kind of like a board basically that's going to be in the main floor advertising the different showcases. So you can purchase an ad if you want. You can purchase an ad in the program guide or the screens, but also like it's going to be out there and you can share. Social media is probably that's the cheap, free, and easy option is like share and tag at Folk Music Ontario, and we'll put it out on ours. We'll reshare. We'll retweet, we'll do all the things and make sure that that's going to our audience there.
That's awesome. And while we've got you, Ross, there we were talking about how FMO is going to do merch tables instead in lieu of drop boxes. So in the past, if you've been to FMO or FAI, you know that there's a room and there was like a brown box if you wanted to drop things in people's boxes, and then they would go home with this giant box of CDs. And so that's running a little bit differently this year, where there will be merch tables available for anyone, whether you're showcasing or not, to put your merch out on. And there will be a volunteer there that is watching the merch table, so nobody swipes the whole thing. So that'll be in the hotel in the main hall, right?
Yeah, that's going to be in the ballroom where showcases are going on, and we're going to have the exhibit hall there. Um, the the exhibit hall will open half an hour before the first showcase, so that people can go and set up. So you can go and drop off your merch then, or really anytime, because we'll have a volunteer there making sure it looks neat and tidy. But yeah, just drop off your CDs, or if you have cards, you can leave some there. We won't have space for like any, again, please no posters. But yeah, definitely if you want to leave a CD or cassette or vinyl for folks to pick up, it's delegates only, so it's not like your rabid fans are coming in there swiping all your merch. The conference is delegates only, and that room is delegates only.
Awesome. Thanks, Ross. So, Amanda, can we move on to digital stuff? Have we talked about that's the physical music stuff, I guess.
Yeah,
Um,
I think the only thing I was gonna say is, are we getting lanyards this year or yeah, so again, the eco thing, I just feel like are maybe gone are the days where like sometimes you'd print a little small like cue card size thing that people could put in their lanyards. but I don't know what type you folks are doing this year.
Yeah, we're not going to do we're not doing the insert thing. It's going to be
Like a
uh,
proper.
yeah, we're like recycling. We have a lanyard recycling program, so that's all
Great.
SOCAN lanyards of years
Yeah.
past, with some like ones that hadn't been used from years past, and then it's like a some sort of is the I don't know what exactly it's made of. It's called eco something,
Huh.
eco stock. Um, I haven't been too involved in the printing process, but it'll be just like a little card that attaches to the lanyard.
Awesome. Okay. Sweet. Love
Sweet.
it. So
Sweet.
digital then.
So digital. So like I think before any sort of conference or event, you want to make sure that your digital self matches with who you are. So whether that means like updating your website, getting your EPK together. Yeah, I especially wanted to touch on the importance of having a streaming link.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It depends, if the music's released already or unreleased. I think people are doing different things, but I do think that what I've noticed is presenters aren't always accepting physical CDs and all that stuff in person. So I'm like obsessed with the QR code. I'm so happy it's made a comeback. uh, it's like so cool. I think it's doing what it was always meant to do. Um, so having, like being able to either use SoundCloud or I guess Bandcamp as well. Even if it's a Spotify playlist, like there's all sorts of ways that you can kind of like embed your streaming link into even like a web page if you want, or just make the QR code that one, URL with your wherever your playlist is that you've made with your newest music. I recommend,
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
people don't want to get waves or MP3s in their email.
Do not send anyone an email with a wave or an MP3. If you only have it on Drive at the moment or something like that, you can send a link to that. But it's always better for presenters if you take that drive, because it's not very user friendly to even play songs on Google Drive or on Dropbox. And then you don't get to show anyone the the branding of what you're looking like. So I always recommend people like get yourself a SoundCloud, put it on private. At least people can see what your album is supposed to look like or what your recent press shot looks like. They can play the song, they can go back to it. And then you can see how many plays you're getting as well, which is something that you can't see on Google Drive or Dropbox. So to me, it's important to see like how many people are interacting with this? What sort of engagement are you having? Are they listening to one song more than others? That could be a hint of what your first single should be. So I feel like all of that stuff is pretty important. Um, as well as like you're updating your website, making sure that like if you have any shows coming up, having those on your website before a conference is super important because presenters and folks are looking at that. As well, if you want to skip the SoundCloud thing and do an EPK online on your website, that's totally doable too. Bandzoogle is a really great website platform that we work with a lot. My artist site is on Bandzoogle. They make it really easy to interact and it's super user friendly, and you don't have to be a web designer to be able to have a nice website. So yeah, I recommend people look at Bandzoogle if you don't already have a really great website going.
Yeah. I also think we were saying EPK. I mean, the way that I treat an EPK at this point is I have a separate page. I have a Squarespace website right now, and I just have an unlinked page that has, photo bio, a streaming link that has the songs that I want to showcase the most. I've even gone as far as like making different pages depending on if the conference I'm going to is more folky or more country, or like, you can kind of play with, who you're probably going to meet. But as far as having one is fine also. I'm just
Mhm.
crazy. But Yeah, and like that could be the link that you send to people, and that could have the streaming embedded
Mhm.
playlist as well.
Yeah, and you can have a one sheet on there. When you say you have a different, sometimes have a different EPK for depending on who your audience is. I definitely had a different one sheet for Canadian radio versus American radio versus this is a conference and I'm announcing a new album, or so like know who your audience is. I think is the important takeaway from that, and do what you need to do to make sure that they get the information that they need.
And want.
Yeah, and want. Yeah.
Well, also like even thinking about francophone artists, like, and whatever you feel, whatever an artist feels separates them from the crowd, let's say, or whatever is unique to each artist, like I think it's really important to like put that front and center,
Mm.
like put it front and center. These folks that are booking the gigs and putting your music on the radio and all that stuff, like they are seeing a lot of stuff, so if you describe yourself in a certain way, like LGBTQ2S or whatever is good for you, or like soul or whatever those sort of like hot words are that I think we all can kind of imagine what people are looking for when they're making quicker decisions or just trying to like rifle through all sorts of things. I think it's important to put that stuff up front too. Just thinking of the EPK in one sheet.
Mhm. And it's interesting because an EPK can be a bunch of different things. It can be a web page, it can be a document, it can be a video.
Mm.
Um, but I think it's a good practice to have for presenters, as well as like when you've booked a show too, when you're like you need to send press shots and a bio and quotes and your stage plot and whatever the case may be, like that can all live on a page on your website that doesn't need to be seen in the menu. It can be melaniebrulée.com/EPK, and then it's easy for you to remember to send to people. And so whether you're about to get booked or you have been booked, you can just send that. And then you can have your stage plot for a duo, trio, 4-piece, 18-piece with a big band. And it all lives in one place.
Mhm. Yeah, I love it. I'm going down the list here. I see get the delegate list. Do you want to move into that zone or do we skip over anything?
Yeah, so well, we were saying, like Rosalind was saying, that there's no app for FMO this year, but the website is going to be used as the app, as well. Every delegate will get a digital program guide sent to them from FMO, and imminently you'll be able to see the schedule online. So that's going to happen sooner than you'll get the digital program guide. But FYI, schedules are going up very soon. So I'd say like before a conference, and I don't wait to do this at the conference. I do this ahead of time. I plan my day of like what I'm going to do, where I'm going to be, and what like my top 3 things are at that time. If there are panels happening at the same time as each other, I kind of like star things. And so I always make myself a plan before I go, so that I don't get overwhelmed. And also, it's okay to like star a whole bunch of things and go to things that are not that at all, because you might run into folks that you just like really want to hang out with, and they're going to this panel that you hadn't expected, but you want to stay connected to these people. So you end up going to these. I mean, sometimes just trust your heart, like go with things, be as well organized and flighty as you want to be overall. But
Yeah.
yeah, let's talk about the delegate list.
Yeah. I love all that. I actually, the first couple times I went to FMO or OCFF, I didn't make a plan. And I remember feeling like, now what do I do? Like there's so much going on. And then I ended up at nothing half the time, and I think it's really smart to look at the schedule in advance and give yourself a
It's
little bit of a guide in case you're like, uh-oh, what do I do now? Yeah, I still,
Yeah, I mean, it's helpful too, I think, to other people as well. If you're like, oh, there's this thing I really want to go to. Do you want to come with me? And people are like, oh, this person's really got their shiz together.
yeah.
You can kind of fake having your shiz together.
Yeah. And this goes right into this delegate list for me, because this is a pre-conference thing also. as soon as the delegate list is available for any conference, I'm usually like hunting it down before it's ready, but just see who's going. Highlight, I just did this for Americana Fest because it was a new festival or conference for me, and I felt like I don't know as many people. And I highlighted the folks that I did know, and I thought, okay, I know they're going. I had an official showcase, so I was able to email them in advance and say, like, this is happening, would love to see you there. I don't know. I personally don't go and like blanket email the whole delegate list. Because I don't know. I think for me, like making that effort to make that personal connection, that one-on-one connection, instead of like, hey, I'm playing at FMO, I think or I'll be at FMO or whatever it is. I think it's nice to really email people in advance, say their name, something a little more personal, and then, oh, nice. There's a delegate list.
There is a delegate list. So it's Folk Music Ontario, folkmusicontario.org/delegate. So
Nice.
you guys can find that if anybody's listening on Facebook and can't see that. Can we just pause and talk about this sending out?
Yeah.
Let's call it what it is. It's spam. So if you are not addressing a person, one of the things is if you're sending this in a mass email, it's definitely going to go into junk. Secondly, you are not doing yourself any favors by sending a mass email to people that you don't know. This is not that community. This is not about selling. This is about building relationships in the folk community. And so a lot of people will get a bunch of business cards after the conference and put everybody on your newsletter list. Do not do that unless the person has specifically said that it's okay. A lot of presenters don't want to be on your mailing list, but they do want to have a personal connection with you. So I'd even go as far to say, as it's dangerous for you in your career to send these unwanted, spammy sort of just mass emails or newsletters to people, because they will notice that they've never signed up for your newsletter. They will unsubscribe right away, and you might miss out on a gig from that. However, if you do take the time and write a message like, hey, Amanda, I've been watching Ishkade Records and what they've been doing lately with the Indigenous and Métis and Inuit community, and I think what you're doing is really cool. Like, if you can drop something that is like, I've been watching, like, I've looked you up, like, I know what you do, I know who you are, and like, here is how I think we would connect. I'm excited to meet you. If you're roaming around, here's where I'll be for my showcase. But excited to hear about what you're up to lately. Always remember that you are a human being talking to a human being. And yes, there's business and stuff, but this is not like, everybody knows that you're selling. It's a conference. Everybody knows that everybody's selling. So nobody wants to feel you sell. And that's going back to, like, the original stuff we talked about. So yeah, that's my thoughts on.
Yeah.
So get the delegate list, send the emails to people, look them up as humans and see where you connect.
Yeah. And it's making me think about approach. Like, I am of the opinion that it's better to make deeper connection, a less number of deeper connections than the most amount of like surface level connections. I'd rather make 3 solid contacts than like try to connect with like 50 people where I don't really like, no one really gets anywhere. And you're like, yeah, I know you now, but I'd rather like it sounds like a funny way to say it in English, but do you know what I'm saying? Like, make connections and less of them than like more surface level connections.
I think that's good advice in the music industry in general, because if we are really going on the path of decolonizing the space, which is what we want to do, and which is what where the folk industry and the folk music orgs are at, right? If we really want to do that, then that's the way to go. Is like, forget all of the surface crap that you are, and build those connections, and let's like braid ourselves into the fabric of it all instead of just trying to do as much as possible. First of all, you'll burn out trying to make too many connections. You'll forget people. You won't notice as much. Um, I think it's really important to think about what you want to do in your career and what that looks like for you before you go to the conference as well, so that you know what fits into your mandate, what fits into your vision. So, like, why do you make music? Like, if you can get your top 3 reasons of why you make music and then connect with people based on that, it will be a guideline for you to know that, like, this is somebody that I want to connect with. This is somebody that I want to work with. This is somebody, that, and the thing is with the music industry in general is like, just because somebody uh, is doing one job one day doesn't mean that they won't be doing another job with another organization or another festival or whatever later on. So people tend to stay in this circle in music. And so they might be a program coordinator for Oh Mike one day, and they might be running Shelter Valley Festival the next year. So keep that in mind, that like all of these beautiful connections that you're making with people are not necessarily, you don't necessarily only need to be making connections on a really high level, but the more that you can weave yourself into the fabric of this community, that's really going to help you in the long run, I think, in your career in folk music.
I agree. Also, the most important friends and people I met were artists.
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah.
it's just as important because they're your family and like your friends and the people that will like have your back when shit's all fucking crazy. And I think, I mean, even Mel, like us, and I remember learning about the ladies in waiting, and I like lived in Ottawa, and I just remember like all these badass women were doing all this music, and making friends with that group of ladies at the time like really helped me feel a part of something and be in community, which it just, I don't know, I think it helps all us artists to be friends with each
Mm.
other, and make those connections.
And like while you're sending out messages to delegates and like festival organizers and artistic directors and stuff, if there's an artist that you're like, oh, dang, I'd really love to co-write with this person, why not make that connection ahead of time too? I feel like the hierarchy of everything is not my focus at the moment. And the more that we can like connect with each other and cross collaborate, those are what makes really strong connections in the long run. So I've been telling people that throughout the pandemic, because I feel like to a certain degree, there's no rules with communication anymore. You can like DM somebody. I mean, like you can be like, hey, Kathleen Edwards, I really like what you're doing. Like you can really email or DM anyone. So like think about that too. Like, where do you see yourself going? Like who do you want to connect with on that level? Who do you like in terms of their songwriting styles? And who could you see yourself touring with or collaborating with? Like those are really important connections to make too. All right. It's 7 minutes to 4, but we have a few things to get through still. We might make this run maybe 15 minutes over time, but it's not a bad idea to send out a newsletter to your people, the people that are on your newsletter, to let them know that you're going to FMO as well. You can recommend that people add your showcase to their calendar. Let's just quickly, like there's some conferences that are open to the public. These are there's some of the showcases that are going to be open to the public at night. No, there are none that are open to the public. It's only conference delegates. So if you were going to a different conference, you might want to do to include your schedule, but for this one, no. Yeah, Rosalind.
Can I hop in and quickly answer? Oh, I'll follow on what you just said and say that yeah, it's delegates only for the whole conference. We are doing shows in venues, and uh, really weren't sure how many people were coming out to conferences yet. When we were doing this, and so we thought maybe we might need to get some more butts and seats, but no, we got a happening conference. We have I think we have so far hit the 2019 number for registered paid delegates, which is like
Nice.
rolling. So yeah, so it's all delegates, baby. I wanted to just quickly address Patrick's question. Patrick put a question in the chat, and his question was, "Is it worth it to book a kiosk at FMO?" Compared to some other conferences, we do it a little bit differently. Some are very kiosk focused, where like every agent or every label is going to have a conference. We're not approaching it that way this year. We're going to have the kiosks inside of the main hall, like kind of the big ballroom at the DoubleTree. So kiosks are mostly going to be for organizations and like those types of partners. So like folks like OMIC or the CFM or Music Ontario, like more of like an organizational thing. People can purchase. You can purchase a kiosk, but you can also just be there. Like it's going to be. I think it's as an artist, I think you're going to have. You're going to get just as much from just being in that space. We'll have lots of like roundtables for folks to sit down and have chats with each other. And I think it's going to just be mostly like being present. It Yeah, I hope that answers that. If you're selling something, like if you just wrote a folk book and want to promote the book and want to have books with you and want to sell that, maybe you want to buy a table or something. But yeah, I think just being in this space is gonna be just as valuable.
Thanks, Rosalind. Let's move through dressing like you're on stage all the time.
Yeah, we had so much fun talking about this. And so
Yeah.
this just to bring back to like the checklist, like you're packing your suitcase. I remember noticing Melanie Brulée all the time, every conference, because Mel always dressed to the nines, always looked like she could have just been stepping right on stage any moment. And I love that. I love that so much. I think it's like it helps for recognition with people, and I think it's such good advice. And I was, yeah, just always inspired by like how much I knew that that you were a performer, you were an artist, you're a performer. I noticed you, and I think that that's fun. And I think that that's like wearing your colors, and I love that. And I think it's really something to think about for artists. Like sometimes I'm like, oh, the whole branding thing is like, yikes. But as long as you feel good and you're not just like, you wouldn't wear sweatpants or like Lulus on stage, then don't wear them to the conference, is the
I
only
feel like it's a good way to like if you generally when you're at conferencing dress how you dress on stage, the one day that you decide you want to go under the radar, you totally can. You can like, you know what I mean? Because like people, I have like my hat. I always wear my hat, and so if I don't have my hat on and I put my glasses on, most people don't know who I am. So it's like that's the day that I'm, tired, hungover, whatever, not feeling great. Like you can totally manage that. Um, a shout out to Amanda's red jacket.
totally.
Shout out to Tamara Cater, who has a really great system for packing for a conference, packing clothes. She organizes her outfits ahead of time. So she does not have to do any brain power thinking of what's happening that day. She knows that on Thursday she's wearing this outfit, and that night she's going to change into that if she needs to. And so that is a really great way to just like create more space in your brain, if you want it. Yeah. Also on like personal stuff, uh bring your vitamins. Make sure you take like vitamin D and vitamin C before the conference. Like start now. Start
Drink,
taking your vitamins now.
drink lots of water.
Yeah.
It's like you're
Yes.
going to like a tournament,
Yes.
it's like, it really, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And if you have any like medicine that you require, don't forget that stuff. If needing to know where the closest um of not a chemist in Canada, that's not what we call it in Canada, pharmacy, If you need to know where the nearest pharmacy is, like do that sort of research ahead of time so that you know where you're at. Bringing like a journal to remember people. A lot of times I go into a bathroom after if I've met a lot of people that I've never met before, I will purposely go to the bathroom, whether or not I need to go, and I will sit there on the toilet and I will write down in the notes on my phone, like, I met Amanda Rheaume, she owns a label. I met this person, da 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 da. We talked about our dogs, like, and so that way, when you do follow ups later, when you send emails, you can be like, and how's Fluffy, your Sharpei. And that's kind of cute that you remember things about people. Humidifier, that's a really great call, Shauna. Especially like breathing in recycled air uh, from the hotels. And yeah, a lot of people bring humidifiers to their hotel rooms. That's great advice. Thanks for that one. Performance stuff, Amanda?
Yeah. This may go without saying, but if you're playing, definitely make sure you have all your stuff. The nice thing is we're not like going into the middle of nowhere. There's definitely like music stores, and maybe there's along a McQuaid. Probably, but yeah, just I've well, and this is a bit of old school advice because we're not doing late night showcase rooms, right? Are we? No.
No,
We
they're
okay.
in venues. There's
Yeah.
three types of showcases. In case people don't know that already, there's three types of showcases. There's some in the daytime that are called spotlight, and then there's official showcases in the evening, and then there's nighttime spotlight showcases that are happening in venues in London, and everything is within a 2-minute walk of the two hotels that people are staying at and the DoubleTree where all of the main stuff is happening. So
Cool.
yeah.
Yeah. But I still think it's really like I need to remind myself, like, bring 9-volt batteries. Bring a snark tuner. Like if you don't have one, they're a lot easier than a pedal. If you're playing a guitar, for example, or a fiddle, and lots of other instruments too, I guess.
And snarks are great for random jams, if you're like happen to be in the hotel lobby and there's somebody jamming and you want to get in on that, like having a snark instead of having to pull out your tuner or whatever. I mean, maybe people in the world can tune by ear. I've never met one and I am not one, but yeah. Well, we're probably getting close to the end here. Like in terms of food stuff, there are there's restaurants and that sort of thing, but I always find myself getting really busy and I forget to eat at conferences. So having snacks in my hotel room and like Cliff bars, granola bars, fruit, just some stuff that is like sustenance-y stuff that can help you get through your day. I once fed Richard Flowhill a white bun with a piece of Lindt chocolate inside, and I called it a chocolate croissant. And he said it was the greatest thing he had ever eaten in his life. And I was like, no way. And then I tried it, and it's actually really good. So if you're craving a fancy chocolate croissant and you can't find one,
That's
just like a little dinner roll with a piece of chocolate in the middle,
This
bingo
is
bango.
sound nutritional advice. But Flo Hill doesn't like vegetables. Like he
No,
doesn't like vegetables. So,
no, he doesn't.
I love it. I love that story. And I love Flo Hill. Should we get questions? Because I know I feel like,
Yeah,
yeah, I don't want to run
yeah,
out of time.
totally. Moon fruits. Hey, Kate. Oh,
Hello, hello.
hi.
Hi. I have a question for the group, maybe directed to Rosalind. I'm not sure. So, um, first time conferencing in a little while. Also, first time conferencing as a parent. And I'm wondering if I spoke with Joel a little while back from FMO, and he was saying that there may or may not be some childcare availability. We're sort of just making our own arrangements, but not ever having juggled those two things before. I'm wondering, Rosalind, if you can shed a little light on what might be available, and then either Amanda or Mel, if you have any tips for juggling multiple responsibilities, family stuff, and whatever. I'm all ears.
Yeah, great question. So we don't have special childcare at the conference. Um, Gosh, I wish, I also wish that we did because I'm going to have two toddlers there great. It'll be interesting. Yeah, it's, I 100% looked pretty deep into it, and it just gets like, it's pretty complicated liability wise, and timing wise, because really it's like you need somebody to be there at, your showcase is at 11 p.m. Like, you're not going to wake up your baby and take it somewhere. You really need someone to come to you. So, do I believe it's possible at some point for a conference to do this? Yes. I have not cracked the code yet of what the way is to make it happen, but I want to. And I love to keep that conversation going so we can figure it out. What we are offering is that are, if you want to bring somebody with you that is going to be childcare, we will comp that person. And similarly, if you are caring for somebody, if you are the caregiver of somebody and you are, whether that person is elderly or in any sense where you're the companion of somebody that needs your care, you can bring that person with you, and we will make sure that they're comped and that it's easy for you to do that. So that's our solution to make it a little easier for folks. And I definitely look forward to continuing the conversation so we can figure out how to make that happen at some point.
That's so great, Rosalind. Did that answer your question, Kate?
Yeah. And that was my next question was, can my caregiver come on site to the conference to like hand off my kid, or like, how's that work? So they can actually come and be there.
They can come in, they can,
Do
totally.
we need to register them in some way, or
Yes,
doesn't?
yes, you do. Yeah.
Okay.
So all you do is just either send myself or just send me an email, director at folkmusicontario.ca. You can also email Joel at office@folkmusicontario.ca and just say that you need a code for a companion, for childcare or whichever. And then we'll send you a code and you can register that person. The registration just means that they'll get the lanyard, so then they have all access. So, which makes it really handy if you are doing handoffs and things, and you don't want to be like, meet me at the gate. And
that's kind of what
like kids dancing to music is the cutest thing ever. What better way to sell your music to be like, check out this cute dance pit that will happen at your folk festival.
Sidebar to that, Mike is planning soon in the next couple months to do a panel on parenting in the music industry. So keep an eye on IMB sessions for that, because it's definitely an important topic.
That's amazing.
Do we have any other questions, either in the chat, or if somebody wants to unmute themselves and go ahead, or on Facebook Live? Does anybody have any questions? Oh yeah, that's a good one, Eliakim. So Eliakim is our memberships and memberships and communications coordinator. Thank you. He's saying he's realized a trend when he meets new people, asking for social media pages, and then folks like haven't remembered their password or kept them updated, or whatever the case may be. So I feel like that's super important to touch on socials, is that like a lot of times when people and bookers are looking at your Instagram, for example, if you don't have a live video up there, or if you don't have a clip of a music video or your music, you are missing out. So a lot of times they're just going to look for something video. So even if you have an old video that you want to post, do that. Put your music on your social pages, and make sure that you've posted in the last little while. So they're going to look at that engagement sort of thing too. So if you've got an official showcase, but you haven't posted anything on your socials in 2 months, that's a bit of a red flag that like the booker might think that you are not willing to engage sort of on that front. I mean, we can get into the nitty gritty about how much of a pain social media is on another call, and I agree, it's a lot to ask of artists to do all of these things and create art, but if you can put like a 15-second clip of even just you playing guitar, or a clip of a past video, you probably already have so much content that you don't realize you're just sitting on. Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, pinning those things to the top, pinning those videos to the top is a great idea too. Absolutely.
We're all gonna be
Um,
here soon, folks. It's not
I
so.
know. This is so exciting. So, I mean, like, have a look around the room, see who's here. Um, let's all make sure that we meet up when we're there. Oh, Mike is going to have a banner somewhere in the hotel on the main floor, I think. So come and hang out at the Oh Mike banner. There's 2 more of these. So the next workshop we're doing next week on October 4th, and that one's happening at 1 p.m. That one's with Cindy Dwar about regulating your nervous system. Hello, so important. So just for anyone who's like nervous about networking or hasn't networked in a while or gets anxious or, you know, just wants to learn some tips and tricks on like how to manage the physiology of stress. So that's going to be a really interesting one. And then our last pre-FMO workshop is going to be on October 11th at 5 p.m. with Kara Shannon. And we're really going to start talking more about creating authentic connections. And she is a business powerhouse, but also is really great at just being a really great human being. And so I think she's going to have a lot of really great tips and tricks for us on that front. Big thank you to FMO for allowing us to do this and being a partner with us for this. Big thanks to Ontario Creates. Yeah, thanks. Ontario Creates and the City of Ottawa is funding this project and allowing us to do this. So on that note, I thank you all for being here. If you found this useful and you want to share the Facebook Live on your pages, feel free to do that. Feel free to tag us. Don't forget to tag FMO in all of your showcase promo. And a big thanks to our team at Oh Mike and Kareem for managing the whole Zoom thing today. So we will see you on October 4th, next Tuesday. And Amanda, thank you so much for doing this and being here.
Thanks. Big round for Mel here.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, guys.
See you all soon.
All right. Have a great afternoon, evening, whatever time it is you're watching this, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Bye. Thank you very much.